Okie dokie.
Hello, everyone. We are, in fact, live. Are we?
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
We live. We live. I just realized that I closed out of Dracula, so I gotta open up that tab again.
Jeez. What you doing?
I don't know, because I have every other tab open.
You always have
Man.
like 1,000 tabs. Got like bajillion things happening. Hello, Galaxy.
Hey,
welcome,
Galaxy.
welcome. Whoa, just pick the chapter.
Well, that's where I was going. I thought I hadn't gotten to it yet. Around 13, right? There we go.
Hello, Dan. Welcome. How's everybody doing tonight or today? Hey, that's enough.
I suppose it is.
You
Good
don't
call.
know what a no copy is?
No,
What? They're stinking cute.
I'm sure they are.
For those who don't know, an okapi is the only relative of the giraffe.
Okay, there it is.
And they're better.
You know, vampires must love giraffes.
Why? Big
They
neck.
got all that neck.
Does anyone know how many vertebrae are in a giraffe neck?
What channel do you think you're on? Of course, I don't. What?
Yeah, better than a giraffe. They're way better than a giraffe. Look at 72.
42. That's my answer to any question regarding numbers. It's always right,
7.
whether they know it or not.
It's 7.
That was my next guess.
Literally. So many feet of neck. Just 7 vertebrae.
It's terrible.
I mean. Why? Oh, sure it was, Dan. Sure it was.
Yes, silly mistakes. Sorry, I just, I multiplied mine by the wrong number.
Okapis have like the long tongue, but they're brown. They got stripy butts. They're stinking cute.
Yeah, I know what they are. Speaking of stinking cute.
Oh, does someone want to listen to some Dracula today? What are you doing, sir?
He doesn't want to get up. He just wants to sit.
And like demand attention. Hi, Jackson. Hi, Jackson.
Are we ready to get into this today?
Yeah, let's do
With,
it. Let's just start. Yeah.
Since the last time Lucy finally succumbed to death. They ran out of blood.
They did
No more blood
indeed.
transfusions.
They did indeed.
Her mom.
How many pets
Kind of-
do you guys have in total?
A lot.
A lot. We have a lot of animals. It's a lot.
Well, technically, we're currently housing 3 more cats than we should have. But they have like homes they just haven't gone to yet.
Yes. This is true.
So right now, what, like
It's
8
It's 8
altogether?
It's 8 cats.
Wait, no. Oh, harm. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, that's way too many.
It's 8 cats.
When did we get 5? What?
Lil was 5. But 3 of them are fosters. So. Plus the dog. Plus a snake.
Yeah. All rescues.
Everyone's a rescue in this house. Even the snake.
Even the snake.
Love that Yorm. He's such a good boy. All right. God, Dr. Seward is like the main character anymore, isn't he? Like, it just seems like it's just.
He really is, but
Oh.
for good reason. Like, some crazy stuff is going to happen, I think, in this chapter. Or maybe this is the depressing one where he's just like, oh my god, Lucy, no.
I don't know.
Love of my life who is going to marry another man.
Oh, Biggs is the rescue. Oh. Oh.
Why is that? Oh.
I just thought it was funny. Ah. Can I not think it's funny? Why did you take that?
Do you want to transition it? Do you want to do the technical stuff?
No.
No, go ahead. It's fine.
No, I don't want to. You do it. Do it. I don't want to do it.
No way to treat your rescue.
I am the entertainment. You are the technical side. You just do it.
I am the danger.
No. No.
Oh, yes. No. I am the rescue.
Yeah, nah.
Yeah, close enough.
Nah.
Slightly pinker?
You tried. Tried to do a funny.
Hold on.
Oh my lord. Here we go.
You just...
Why'd you say anything, man? You had to say something. You had to say something.
Slightly pinker.
It could be pink. It's fine.
I don't know. I also have dark mode on, so maybe that's messing with it. But yeah, I don't see it.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to mute my mic now so I can just stop.
All right. Here we go.
Actually, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Okay. Right. Chapter 13. Dr. Seward's Diary. Continued. The funeral was arranged for the next succeeding day, so that Lucy and her mother might be buried together. I attended to all the ghastly formalities, and the urbane undertaker proved that his staff were afflicted, or blessed, with something of his own obsequious suavity. Even the woman who performed the last offices for the dead remarked to me, in a confidential, brother-professional way, when she had come out from the death chamber, "She makes a very beautiful corpse, sir. It's quite a privilege to attend on her. It's not too much to say that she will do credit to our establishment." I don't know what that voice was. I'm sorry, guys. I noticed that Van Helsing never kept far away. This was possible from the disordered state of things in the household. There were no relatives at hand, and as Arthur had to be back the next day to attend at his father's funeral, we were unable to notify anyone who should have been bidden. Under the circumstances, Van Helsing and I took it upon ourselves to examine papers, etc. He insisted upon looking over Lucy's papers himself. I asked him why, for I feared that he, being a foreigner, might not be quite aware of English legal requirements, and so might in ignorance make some unnecessary trouble. He answered me, I know. You forget that I am a lawyer as well as a doctor, but this is not altogether for the law. You knew that when you avoided the coroner. I have more than him to avoid. There may be papers more, such as this." As he spoke, he took from his pocketbook the memorandum which had been in Lucy's breast, and which she had torn in her sleep. "When you find anything of the solicitor who is for the late Mrs. Westenra, seal all her papers and write him tonight. For me, I watch here in the room and in Miss Lucy's old room all night, and I myself search for what may be. It is not well that her very thoughts go into the hands of strangers." I went on with my part of the work, and in another hour had found the name and address of Mrs. Westenra's solicitor, and had written to him. All the poor lady's papers were in order. Explicit directions regarding the place of burial were given. I had hardly sealed the letter, when to my surprise, Van Helsing walked into the room, saying, "Can I help you, friend John?" I am free, and if I may, my service is to you. Have you got what you looked for? I asked, to which he replied, I did not look for any specific thing. I only hope to find, and find I have, all that there was. Only some letters and a few memoranda, and a new diary begun. But I have them here, and we shall for the present say nothing of them. I shall see that poor lad tomorrow evening, and with his sanction I shall use some. When he had finished the work in hand, he said to me, And now, friend John, I think we may to bed. We want sleep, both you and I, and rest to recuperate. Tomorrow we shall have much to do, but for the tonight there is no need of us. Alas. Before turning in, we went to look at poor Lucy. The undertaker had certainly done his work well, for the room was turned into a small chapelle ardente. There was a wilderness of beautiful white flowers, and death was made as little repulsive as might be. The end of the winding sheet was laid over the face. When the professor bent over and turned it gently black, we both stared at the beauty before us, the tall wax candles showing a sufficient light to note it well. All Lucy's loveliness had come back to her in death, and the hours that had passed, instead of leaving traces of decay's effacing fingers, had but restored the beauty of life, till positively I could not quite believe my eyes that I was looking at a corpse. The professor looked sternly grave. He had not loved her as I had, and there was no need for tears in his eyes. He said to me, Remain till I return, and left the room. He came back with a handful of wild garlic from the box waiting in the hall, but which had not been opened, and placed the flowers amongst the others on and around the bed. Then he took from his neck, inside his collar, a little gold crucifix, and placed it over the mouth. He restored the sheet to its place, and we came away. I was undressing in my own room, with when, with a premonitory tap at the door, he entered, and at once began to speak. Tomorrow, I want you to bring me, before night, a set of post-mortem knives. Must we make an autopsy? I asked. Yes and no. I want to operate, but not as you think. Let me tell you now, but not a word to another. I want to cut off her head and take out her heart. Ah, you a surgeon, and so shocked? You, whom I have seen no trouble of hand or heart, do operations of life and death that would rest a shudder. Oh, but I must not forget, my dear John, that you loved her. And I have not forgotten it, for it is I shall do the it's for I that shall operate, and you must only help. I would like it to do it tonight, but for Arthur I must not. He will be free after his father's funeral tomorrow, and he will want to see her, to see it. Then, when she is coffined, ready for the next day, you and I shall come in our sleep. We shall unscrew the coffin lid, and shall do our operation, and then replace all, so that none know, save we alone. But why do it at all? The girl is dead. Why mutilate her poor body without need? And if there is no necessity for a post-mortem, and nothing to gain by it, no good to her, to us, to science, to human knowledge, why do it? Without such it is monstrous. For answer, he put his hand on my shoulder and said with infinite tenderness, Friend John, I pity your poor bleeding heart, and I love you the more because it does so bleed. If I could, I would take on myself the burden you do bear. But there are things you know not, but that you shall know. And bless me for knowing, though they are not pleasant things, John, my child. You have been my friend now many years, and yet did you ever know me to do any without good cause? I may err, I am but man, but I believe in all I do. Was it not for these causes that you sent for me when the great trouble came? Yes. Were you not amazed, nay, horrified, when I would not let Arthur kiss his love, though she was dying, and snatched him away by all my strength? Yes. And yet you saw how she thanked me, with her so beautiful dying eyes, her voice too, so weak, and she kissed my rough old hand and blessed me? Yes! And did you not hear me swear promise to her, so she closed her eyes grateful? Yes! Well, I have good reason now for all I want to do. You have for many years trust me. You have believed me weeks past, when there be things so strange you might have well doubt. Believe me yet a little, friend John. If you trust me not, then I must tell you what I think. And that is not perhaps well. And if I work, as work I shall, no matter trust or no trust, without my friend trust in me, I work with heavy heart and feel, oh, so lonely when I want all help and courage that may be. He paused a moment and went on solemnly. Friend John, there are strange and terrible days before us. Let us not be two, but one, so that we may work to a good end. Will you not have faith in me? I took his hand and promised him. I held my door open as he went away and watched him go into his room and close the door. As I stood without moving, I saw one of the maids pass silently along the passage. She had her back towards me, so did not see me, and go into the room where Lucy lay. The sight touched me. Devotion is so rare, and we are so grateful to those who show it unmasked to those we love. Here was a poor girl putting aside the terrors which she naturally had of death, to go watch alone by the bier of the mistress whom she loved, so that the poor clay may not be lonely till laid to eternal rest. I must have slept long and soundly, for it was broad daylight when Van Helsing asked me wake me by coming into my room. He came over to my bedside and said, "You need not trouble about the knives. We shall not do it." "Why not?" I asked, for his solemnity of the night before had greatly impressed me. "Because," he said sternly, "it is too late or too early. See!" Here he held up the little golden crucifix. "This was stolen in the night." "How stolen?" I asked in wonder. "Since you have it now." "Because I get it back from the worthless wretch who stole it, from the woman who robbed the dead and the living. Her punishment will surely come, but not through me. She knew not altogether what she did, and thus unknowing, she only stole. Now we must wait." He went away on the word, leaving me with a new mystery to think of, a new puzzle to grapple with. The forenoon was a dreary time, but at noon the solicitor came, Mr. Marquand of Holman, Sons, Marquand and Lidderdale. He was very genial and very appreciative of what we'd done, and took off our hands all cares as to details. During lunch he told us that Mrs. Westenra had for some time expected sudden death from her heart, and had put her affairs in absolute order. He informed us that, with the exception of a certain entailed property of Lucy's father, which now, in default of direct issue, went back to a distant branch of the family, the whole estate, real and personal, was left absolutely to Arthur Holmwood. When he had told us so much, he went on. "Frankly, we did our best to prevent such a testamentary disposition, and pointed out certain contingencies that might leave her daughter either penniless or not so free as she would be to act regarding a matrimonial alliance. Instead, we pressed the matter so far that we almost came into collision, for she asked us if we were or were not prepared to carry out her wishes. Of course, we had then no alternative but to accept. We were right in principle, and 99 times out of 100 we should have proved, by the logic of events, the accuracy of our judgment. Frankly, however, I must admit that in this case any other form of disposition would have rendered impossible the carrying out of her wishes. For by her predeceasing her daughter, the latter would have come into possession of the property, and, even had she only survived her mother by 5 minutes, her property would, in case there were no will, and a will was a practical impossibility in such a case, have been treated at her decease as under intestacy. In which case Lord Godalming, though so dear a friend, would have had no claim in the world, and the inheritors, being remote, would not be likely to abandon their just rights, for sentimental reasons regarding an entire stranger. I assure you, my dear sirs, I am rejoiced at the result. Perfectly rejoiced. He was a good fellow, but his rejoicing at the one little part, in which he was officially interested in, of so great a tragedy, was an object, lesson in the limitations of sympathetic understanding. He did not remain long, but said he would look in later in the day and see Lord Godalming. His coming, of course, had been a certain comfort to us, since it assured us that we should not have to dread hostile criticism as to any of our acts. Arthur was expected at 5 o'clock. So little before that time we visited the death chamber. It was so in very truth, for now both mother and daughter lay in it. The undertaker, true to his craft, had made the best display he could of his goods, and there was a mortuary air about the place that lowered our spirits at once. Van Helsing ordered the former arrangement to be adhered to, explaining that, as Lord Godalming was coming very soon, it would be less harrowing to his feelings to see that all was left of his fiancée quite alone. The undertaker seemed shocked at his own stupidity, and exerted himself to restore things to the condition in which we had left them the night before, so that when Arthur came, such shocks to his feelings as we could avoid were saved. Poor fellow. He looked desperately sad and broken. Even his stalwart manhood seemed to have shrunk. Okay. Imagery there, Bram Stoker. Somewhat under the strain of his much-tried emotions. He had, I knew, been very genuinely and devotedly attached to his father, and to lose him, and at such a time, was a bitter blow to him. With me he was warm as ever, and to Van Helsing he was sweetly courteous, but I could not help seeing that there was some constraint with him. The professor noticed it too, and motioned me to bring him upstairs. I did so, and left him at the door of the room, as I felt he would like to be quite alone with her. But he took my arm and led me in, saying huskily, "You loved her too, old fellow. She told me all about it, and there was no friend had a closer place in her heart than you. I don't know how to thank you for all you've done for her. I can't think yet." He suddenly broke down and threw his arms round my shoulders, and then laid his head on my breast, crying, "Oh, Jack! Jack, what shall I do? The whole of life seems to have gone from me all at once, and there is nothing in the wide world for me to live for." I comforted him as well as I could. In such cases men do not need much expression. A grip of the hand, the tightening of an arm over the shoulder, a sob in unison, are expressions of sympathy dear to a man's heart. I stood still and silent till his sobs died away, and then I said softly to him, "Come and look at her." Together we moved over to the bed, and I lifted the lawn from her face. God, how beautiful she was! Every hour seemed to be enhancing her loveliness. It frightened and amazed me somewhat, and as for Arthur, he fell a-trembling, and finally was shaken with doubt as with an ague. Ague? At last, after a long pause, he said to me in a faint whisper, "Jack, is she really dead?" I assured him sadly that it was so, and went on to suggest, for I felt that such a horrible doubt should not have life for a moment longer than I could help, that it often happened that after death faces became softened and even resolved into their youthful beauty, that this was especially so when death had been preceded by an acute or prolonged suffering. It seemed to quite do away with any doubt, and after kneeling by the couch for a while and looking at her lovingly and long, he turned aside. I told him that this must be goodbye, as the coffin had to be prepared. So he went back and took her dead hand in his and kissed it, and bent over and kissed her forehead. He came away, fondly looking back over his shoulder at her as he came. I left him in the drawing-room, and told Van Helsing that he had said goodbye, so the latter went into the kitchen to tell the undertaker's men to proceed with the preparations, and to screw up the coffin. When he came out of the room again, I told him of Arthur's question, and he replied, "I am not surprised. Just now I doubted for a moment myself." We all dined together, and I could see that poor Art was trying to make the best of things. Van Helsing had been silent all dinner time, but when we had lit our cigars, he said, "Lord—" But Arthur interrupted him. "No, no, not that, for God's sake. Not yet, at any rate. Forgive me, sir. I did not mean to speak offensively. It is only because my loss is so recent." The professor answered very sweetly, "I only use that name because I was in doubt. I must not call you Mr., and I have grown to love you. Yes, my dear boy, to love you as Arthur." Arthur held out his hand and took the old man's warmly. "Call me what you will," he said. "I hope I may always have the title of a friend, and let me say that I am at a loss for words to thank you for your goodness to my poor dear." He paused a moment and went on. "I know that she understood your goodness even better than I do, and if I was rude or in any way wanting at the time you acted so— You remember." The professor nodded. "You must forgive me." He answered with a grave kindness, "I know it was hard for you to quite trust me then, for to trust such violence needs to understand, and I take it that you do not, that you cannot. Trust me now, for you do not yet understand, and there may be more times when I shall want you to trust when you cannot, and may not, and must not yet understand. But the time will come when your trust will be whole and complete in me, and when you shall understand as though the sunlight himself shone through. Then you shall bless me from first to last for your own sake, and for the sake of others, and for her dear sake, to whom I swore to protect." "And indeed, sir," said Arthur warmly, "I shall in all ways trust you. I know and believe you have a very noble heart, and you are Jack's friend, and you were hers. You shall do what you like." The professor cleared his throat a couple of times, as though about to speak, and finally said, "May I ask you something now?" "Certainly." "You know that Mrs. Westenra left you all her property?" "No, poor dear. I never thought of it." "And as it is all yours, you have a right to deal with it as you will. I want you to give me permission to read all Miss Lucy's papers and letters. Believe me, it is no idle curiosity. I have a motive of which, be sure, she would have approved. I have them all here. I took them before we knew that all was yours, so that no strange hand may touch them, no strange eye look to her words into her soul. I shall keep them if I may. Even you may not see them yet, but I shall keep them safe. No word shall be lost, and in good time I shall give them back to you. It is a hard thing I ask, but you will do it, will you not? For Lucy's sake?" Arthur spoke out heartily, like his old self. "Dr. Van Helsing, you may do what you will. I feel that in saying this I am doing what my dear one would have approved. I shall not trouble you with questions until the time comes." The professor stood up as he said solemnly, "And you are right. There will be pain for us all, but it will not be all pain, nor will this pain be the last. We, and you too, you most of all, my dear boy, will have to pass through the bitter water before we reach the sweet. But we must be brave of heart and unselfish, and do our duty, and all will be well." I slept on a sofa in Arthur's room that night. Van Helsing did not go to bed at all. He went to and fro as if patrolling the house, and was never out of sight of the room where Lucy lay in her coffin, strewn with the wild garlic flowers, which sent, through the odour of lily and rose, a heavy, overpowering smell into the night. Mina Harker's journal. 22nd of September. In the train to Exeter. Jonathan sleeping. It seems only yesterday that the last entry was made, and yet how much between then, in Whitby, and all the world before me. Jonathan away, and no news of him. And now, married to Jonathan. Jonathan a solicitor, a partner, rich, master of his own house. Mr. Hawkins dead and buried. And Jonathan with another attack that may harm him. Some day he may ask me about it. Down it all goes. I'm rusty in my shorthand. See what unexpected prosperity does for us? So it may be as well to freshen it up again with an exercise anyhow. The service was very simple and very solemn. There were only ourselves and the servants there, one or two old friends of his from Exeter, his London agent, and a gentleman representing Sir John Paxton, the president of the Incorporated Law Society. Jonathan and I stood hand in hand, and we felt that our best and dearest friend was gone from us. We came back to town quietly, taking a bus to Hyde Park Corner. Jonathan thought it would interest me to go into the Row for a while, so we sat down. But there were very few people there, and it was sad-looking and desolate to see so many empty chairs. It made us think of the empty chair at home, so we got up and walked down Piccadilly. Jonathan was holding me by the arm, the way he used to in old days before I went to school. It felt very improper, for you can't go on for some years teaching etiquette and decorum to other girls without the pedantry of it biting into yourself a bit. But it was Jonathan, and he was my husband, and we didn't know anyone who saw us, and we didn't care if they did. So on we walked. I was looking at a very beautiful girl, in a big cartwheel hat, sitting in a Victoria outside Giuliano's, when I felt Jonathan clutch my arm so tight that he hurt me, and he said under his breath, "My God!" I am always anxious about Jonathan, for I fear that some nervous fit may upset him again, so I turned to him quickly and asked him what it was that disturbed him. He was very pale, and his eyes seemed bulging out, as, half in terror and half in amazement, he gazed at a tall, thin man with a beaky nose and black moustache and pointed beard, who was also observing the pretty girl. He was looking at her so hard that he did not see either of us, and so I had a good view of him. His face was not a good face. It was hard and cruel and sensual, and his big white teeth, that looked all the whiter because his lips were so red, were pointed like an animal's. Jonathan kept staring at him, till I was afraid he would notice. I feared he might take it ill. He looked so fierce and nasty. I asked Jonathan why he was disturbed, and he answered, evidently thinking I knew as much about it as he did, "Do you see who that was? Do you see who it is?" "No, dear," I said. "I don't know him. Who is it?" His answer seemed to shock and thrill me, for it was said as if he did not know that it was to me, Mina, to whom he was speaking. "It is the man himself!" The poor dear was evidently terrified at something, very greatly terrified. I do believe that if he had not had me to lean on and to support him, he would have sunk down. He kept staring. A man came out of the shop with a small parcel and gave it to the lady, who then drove off. The dark man kept his eyes fixed on her, and when the carriage moved up Piccadilly, he followed in the same direction and hailed a hansom. Jonathan kept looking after him and said, as if to himself, "I believe it is the Count, but he has grown young. My God, if this be so! Oh, my God, if only I knew! If only I knew!" He was distressing himself so much that I feared to keep his mind on the subject by asking him any questions, so I remained silent. I drew him away quietly, and he, holding my arm, came easily. We walked a little further, then went in and sat for a while in the Green Park. It was a hot day for autumn, and there was a comfortable seat in a shady place. After a few minutes staring at nothing, Jonathan's eyes closed, and he went quietly into a sleep, with his head on my shoulder. I thought it was the best thing for him, so did not disturb him. In about 20 minutes he woke up and said to me quite cheerfully, "Why, Mina, I've been asleep. Oh, do forgive me for being so rude. Come, and we'll have a cup of tea somewhere." He'd evidently forgotten all about the dark stranger, as in his illness he'd forgotten all this episode had reminded him of. I don't like this lapsing into forgetfulness. It may make or continue some injury to the brain. I must not ask him, for fear I shall do more harm than good, but I must somehow learn the facts of his journey abroad. The time has come, I fear, when I must open that parcel and know what is written. Oh, Jonathan, you will, I know, forgive me if I do wrong, but it is for your own dear sake. Later. A sad homecoming in every way. The house empty of the dear soul who was so good to us. Jonathan still pale and dizzy under a slight relapse of his malady. And now a telegram from Van Helsing, whoever that might be. You will be grieved to hear that Mrs. Westenra died 5 days ago, and that Lucy died the day before yesterday. They were both buried today. What a wealth of sorrow in a few words. Poor Mrs. Westenra. Poor Lucy. Gone never to return to us. And poor Arthur, who have lost such sweetness out of his life. God help us all to bear our troubles. Boy, this is a long one or what, ain't it? Dr. Seward's diary. 22nd September. It is all over. Arthur has gone back to Ring and has taken Quincy Morris with him. What a fine fellow is Quincy. I believe in my heart of hearts that he suffered as much about Lucy's death as any of us, but he bore himself through it like a moral Viking. If America can go on breeding men like that, she will be a power in the world indeed. Van Helsing is lying down, having a rest preparatory to his journey. He goes over to Amsterdam tonight, but says he returns tomorrow night, that he only wants to make some arrangements which can only be made personally. He is to stop with me then, if he can. He says he has work to do in London, which may take him some time. Poor old fellow. I fear the strain of the past week has broken down even his iron strength. All the time of the burial he was, I could see, putting some terrible restraint on himself. When it was all over, we were standing beside Arthur, who, poor fellow, was speaking of his part in the operation where his blood had been transfused to Lucy's veins. I could see Van Helsing's face grow white and purple by turns. Arthur was saying that he felt since then as if the two really had been married, and that she was his wife in the sight of God. None of us said a word of the other operations, and none of us ever shall. Arthur and Quincy went away together to the station, and Van Helsing and I came on here. The moment we were alone in the carriage, he gave way to a regular fit of hysterics. He's denied to me then that it was hysterics, and insisted that it was only his sense of humour asserting itself under very terrible conditions. He laughed till he cried, and I had to draw down the blinds lest anyone could see us and misjudge, and then he cried till he laughed again, and laughed and cried together, just as a woman does. I tried to be stern with him, as one is to a woman under the circumstances. But it had no effect. Men and women are so different in manifestations of nervous strength or weakness. Then, when his face grew grave and stern again, I asked him why his mirth, and why at such a time. His reply was in a way characteristic of him, for it was logical and forceful and mysterious. He said, you don't comprehend, friend John. Do not think that I am not sad, though I laugh. See, I have cried even when the laugh did choke me. But no more think that I am all sorry when I cry, for the laugh he come just the same. Keep it always with you, that laughter who knock at your door and say, "May I come in?" is not the true laughter. No, he is a king, and he come when and how he like. He ask no person. He choose no time for suitability. He say, "I am here," Behold an example. I grieve my heart out for that so sweet young girl. I give my blood for her, though I am old and worn. I give my time, my skill, my sleep. I let my other sufferers want so that she will have all. And yet I can laugh at her very grave. Laugh when the clay from the spade of the sexton drop upon her coffin and say, thud, thud, to my heart, till it send back the blood from my cheek. My heart bleed for that poor boy, that dear boy. So of the age of mine own boy had I been so blessed that he live, and with his hair and the eyes the same. There, you know why I love him so. And yet when he say things that touch my husband heart to the quick, and make my father heart yearn to him as to no other man, not even to you, friend John, for we are more level in experiences than father and son. Yet even at such moment, King Laugh, he come to me and shout and bellow in my ear, here I am, till the blood come dance back and bring some of the sunshine that he carry with him to my cheek. Oh, friend John, it is a strange world, a sad world, a world full of mysteries, miseries and woes and troubles. And yet when King Laugh come, he make them all dance to the tune he play. Bleeding hearts and dry bones of the churchyard, and tears that burn as they fall, all dance together to the music he make with that smileless mouth of him. And believe me, friend John, that he is good to come, and kind. We men and women are like ropes drawn tight with strains that pull us different ways. Then tears come, and like the rain on the ropes, they brace us up, until perhaps the strain become too great, and we break. But King Laugh, he come like the sunshine, and he ease off the strain again, and we bear to go on with our labor, what it may be. I did not like to wound him by pretending not to see his idea, but as I did not yet understand the cause of his laughter, I asked of him. As he answered me, his face grew stern, and he said in quite a different tone, "Oh, it was the grim irony of it all, that this so lovely lady, garlanded with flowers, that looked so fair as life, till one by one we wondered if she were truly dead. She laid in that so fine marble house in that lonely churchyard, where rest so many of her kin, laid there with the mother who loved her, and whom she loved, and a sacred bell going dol, 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 so sad and slow, and those holy men with the white garments of the angels pretending to read books, and yet all the time their eyes never on the page, and all of us with the bowed head. And for what? She is dead, so? Is it not?" "Well, for the life of me, Professor," I said, "I can't see anything to laugh at in all that. Why, your explanation makes it harder to puzzle than before. But even if the burial service was comic, what about poor Arthur and his trouble? Why, his heart was simply breaking." "Just so. Said he not a transfusion of his blood to her veins had made her truly his bride?" "Yes, and it was a sweet and comforting idea for him." "Right so. But there was a difficulty, friend John. If so that, then what about the others? Ho, ho, then this so sweet maid is a polyandrist, and me, with my poor wife dead to me, but alive by church's law, though no wits, all gone, even I, who am faithful husband to this now no wife, am bigamist." "I don't see where the joke comes in there either," I said, and I did not feel particularly pleased with him for saying such things. He laid his hand on my arm and said, "Forgive me, friend John. Friend John, forgive me if I pain. I showed not my feelings to others when it would wound, but only to you, my old friend, whom I can trust. If you could have looked into my very heart when I want to laugh, if you could have done so when the laugh arrived, if you could do so now, when King Laugh have pack up his crown and all that is to him, for he go far, far away from me, and for a long, long time, maybe you would perhaps pity me the most of all." I was touched by the tenderness of his tone and asked why. "Because I know." And now we are all scattered, and for many a long day loneliness will sit over our roofs with brooding wings. Lucy lies in the tomb of her kin, a lordly death house in a lonely churchyard away from teeming London, where the air is fresh and the sun rises over Hampstead Hill, and where wildflowers grow of their own accord. So I can finish this diary, and God only knows if I shall ever begin another. If I do, or if I even open this again, it will be to deal with different people and different themes. For here at the end, where the romance of my life is told, here I go back to take up the thread of my life work. I say sadly, without hope. Finis. The Westminster Gazette, 25th of September. A Hampstead Mystery. The neighbourhood of Hampstead is just at present exercised with a series of events which seem to run on lines parallel to those of what was known to the writers of headlines as the Kensington Horror, or the Stabbing Woman, or the Woman in Black. During the past 2 or 3 days, several cases have occurred of young children straying from home or neglecting to return from their playing on the hearth. In all these cases, the children were too young to give any properly intelligible account themselves, but the consensus of their excuses is that they have been with a bloofer lady. It has always been late in the evening when they seem to have been missed, and on 2 occasions the children had not been found until early in the following morning. It is generally supposed in the neighbourhood that, as the first child missed gave as his reason for being away that a bloofer lady had asked him to come for a walk, the others had picked up the phrase and used it as occasion served. This is the more natural, as the favourite game of the little ones at present is luring each other away by wiles. A correspondent writes us to see some of the tiny tots pretending to be the bloofer lady is extremely funny. Some of our characterists might, he says, take a lesson in the irony of grotesque by comparing the reality and the picture. It is only in accordance with general principles of human nature that the bloofer lady should be the popular role at these alfresco performances. Our correspondent naively says that even Ellen Terry could not be so winningly attractive as some of these grubby-faced little children pretend and even imagine themselves to be. There is, however, possibly a serious side to the question, for some of the children, indeed all who have been missed at night, have been slightly torn or wounded in the throat. The wounds seem as such made by a rat or a small dog, and although of not much importance individually, would tend to show that whatever animal inflicts them has a system or method of its own. The police of the division have been instructed to keep a sharp lookout for straying children, especially when very young, in and around Hampstead Heath, and for any stray dog which may be about. Westminster Gazette, 25th of September. Extra special. The Hampstead Horror. Another child injured. The bloofer lady. We have just received intelligence that another child, missed last night, was only discovered late in the morning under a furze bush at the Shooter's Hill side of Hampstead Heath, which is perhaps less frequented than the other parts. It was the same tiny wound in the throat as has been mentioned in other cases. It was terribly weak and looked quite emaciated. It, too, when partially restored, had the common story to tell of being lured away by the bloofer lady.
The bloofer lady.
The bloofer lady, she come for you, like King Laugh come for you.
I know, King Laugh.
Dude, Van Helsing was great in this chapter.
Van Helsing is great in every chapter. I love him.
Like, Jack Seward is like a stuffed shirt. Because Van Helsing was like hilarious. Oh, Melanie, welcome. Good to see you here.
Oh, he's great. I love the bloofer lady thing.
The bloofer lady?
Yeah.
Why don't you do a talk? I'm going to heat up some tea.
Okay. Fair enough. Bloofer lady. It reminds me of I just think of Slender Man. when that was the thing. Like that was the 1890s version. Beware the bloofer lady. Wonder how Dracula feels about that. Like, did Dracula get word of it? You know, he's this undead, evil deity, basically, and now he's the bloofer lady. How the mighty have fallen. And boy, did this chapter get dated with some of those references. Crying and then laughing and acting like a woman. Whew. Whew. Bram Stoker would not have lasted long in today's society. Canceled as first book. Or no, what did they say? Had to be stern with him like a lady when she's doing that. Oh. I guess this is why it's very easy for Van Helsing to be not only a doctor, a very successful doctor with an entire alphabet to his name, but also a lawyer. Because back then, to be a doctor, all you had to do was just shove some blood into someone and cross your fingers that it actually worked. You didn't actually have to know anything. The Blue Fur Lady, the you-know-who of Dracula? I think so, yeah. You don't say Dracula's name. Who else could it be? Well, I mean, I guess it could be like one of his wives. But or is it Lucy? Has that already taken place? Is she already out there getting blood? Getting some of the nice tender children. Not gonna lie though, as someone who is around a child quite regularly, like I would not want to be drinking a child's blood. Children are disgusting. You know how much they get sick? Especially in like the fall season. Ugh. Ugh. That would be like drinking like old milk.
And this is England too, where it's like foggy and gross.
What's the matter with fog? I like fog.
I'm just looking at the next chapter. It's a long one. Holy moly. So who do we all think the Blue Fur Lady is?
I'd like to believe it's Dracula. And he's in disguise, so he's dressing up as like
A lady.
Mrs. Doubtfire. That's how I'm picturing him, like the Miss Doubtfire clothes.
Ah, Blue Fur Lady sounds like Blucher. Nee. That's great. That's funny. Wow, Blucher.
Is there a respawn cooldown?
Melanie, you're funny. I'm just gonna say. That was great.
I think there is. I mean, she's got a regen, some health there. It was a good sunset. Any sunset's good over the ocean. Also, the moon is crazy tonight. I don't know if it's like gonna be the same for you out there, but here the moon was huge.
The moon is bright tonight.
Watch out for werewolves.
I mean, yes. Never a bad thing to keep werewolves on your mind.
The mentors breed in the fog. Look, you just don't think about it, and then it's not an issue.
I wonder if that's
Ignorance is bliss.
I wonder if that's what's going on at the park. Because drive to the park, it'd be foggy,
Is it?
super foggy.
Do you feel very depressed driving to work in the morning?
No.
No, must not be it.
Maybe it's because I'm casting my Patronus, and I'm fine. I'm sorry, this Lil is wanting to...
You know, in your story, you have to include the blue fur lady
Why?
somehow. I don't know. It'd just be a great like throwback.
The
I think.
bloofer lady.
Yeah.
It'd have to be like a subtle thing, like, it'd have to be like a shop or something. Bloofer ladies, something.
Blue fur ladies, dry cleaning or something. Best blood removal in town.
Yeah, something like that. It'd have to be like a little shop or just like a little blup.
The fog of Harry Potter.
Ew. I knew what you meant, Melanie.
Into the fog.
Into the fog. Oh, tea is so good. That's just it. Every time we live stream, I just need tea. It helps.
You put some honey in it? Yeah. That's the way to go.
Because I feel like I just talk for nonstop, like 3 hours sometimes, and then I'm like, my throat, it hurts.
Oh yeah. I mean, I know what you mean.
Oh, ow!
Like when I'm doing my teaching and instructions, like I'm up there for like 2 hours straight just talking. My throat gets so dry.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, I found out if I stand up and speak, my throat gets less dry than if I sit down and speak.
I'm not standing up.
Well, I know it'd be a really weird camera setup right here, but if we had a standing desk, that would be cool. I would love a standing desk.
Honestly, that would be nice.
You know,
I think David Lightbringer.
future wishes. I had one at one of my previous jobs. It was fantastic. I loved it. As someone who's tall,
No
great.
one will ever blame you for not knowing how to spell German. Freaking fair. German is a wild language. Yeah.
I have never really looked at German,
Oh
tried
my
to learn,
God.
tried to speak it,
You
so
ever-
I don't know. I just know everyone kind of sounds a little bit angry anytime they speak it.
Some of the words are like this long. It's crazy.
Like
All right, Dan, going lurk. Sounds good.
it's like Danish. I mean, it was Dutch. One of those two. Like some of the words are crazy.
German's great though when they have a word for like very specific.
I do know there's like a lot of words and phrases in German that has no translation. I can't remember what it is, but there's a word in French that is... It means that feeling when you go into a room and you forget why you went into that room.
Yeah.
Like that. There's a word for that in French.
But yeah, in English you have to say that feeling you have, blah blah blah. When the French can
Yeah.
just be like, it's this.
Exactly.
Germans like that. They have words. A
Mm.
lot of them. There's a Japanese word for feeling like you have to stay up later so that you can still feel like you have some kind of control over your life, even though you know you have to get up early day. But the later you stay up, it makes you feel better about like the control you have in your life.
Whatever that word is, feelings. that's it.
It's it's a Japanese word. It's a long one too.
But okay. On this chapter though, I got kind of caught up with like the bloofer lady. But
You did. You were really the blue.
because it's just funny to picture Dracula running around like Mrs. Doubtfire, like biting kids.
Damn. Okay.
That's how I picture it in my head. Like
Picture
that's what's going down.
All right. That aside, RuPaul's Dracula aside, what else did you get out of this chapter?
Mrs. Dracfire.
My God.
This wasn't the chapter I thought it was. This next chapter is where things get interesting, I think.
I didn't read the next chapter.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying. Like this next chapter is where things get interesting. Because oh my God, wasn't it Renfield? Yeah, we get some action with Renfield.
You think so?
Which yeah. I'm pretty it's one if it's not this one, I can't remember where I am in the story. I must be closer to finishing than I thought. Because I thought it was like in this chapter where we find out Lucy dies and stuff, and then some stuff goes down with Renfield. And it's
I'm
great.
not giving any spoilers away for this story.
I love whenever Van Helsing's in. He just has that like wittiness to him. And something you pointed out that a lot of people think that Bram Stoker was like gay and like there was a lot of homosexuality in this, and
yeah,
I felt like that chapter kind of saw it a little bit.
It was pretty, it was like obvious, and
yeah,
like I felt like it was really there,
like falling on him and just, oh John,
yeah,
like that's a little. I mean, I get it. Like it's a terrible, awful moment right now, one of the worst days, but bit dramatic.
Mm-hmm. Are you just saying that men aren't allowed to have big emotions?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it was a little over the top. A little. I don't know. Maybe people were just a little bit more dramatic back in the day, but I feel like I have never witnessed something like that.
Melanie says that the Blue Fur Lady sounds very kid-level Halloween.
Yeah. Ooh, I wish we read this sooner. I would dress up as Mrs. Doubtfire and do like a vampire crossover.
God.
That would be great.
Oh my God.
Wonder if I could still do it. I mean, I could just get like the teeth, some fake blood, and I'm gonna have to get like a Doubtfire dress.
So
And wig.
I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. Current theory is that the Blue Fur Lady is Dracula in drag. Yes?
That's what I hope.
Okay. I'm just making sure everyone's on the same page. Just so we're all there.
But no, I definitely like again, not saying it was a bad thing for men to have feelings. But I could definitely see where, like, especially people at the time would have thought, like, I don't know, guys. Yeah, I mean, he had me with the, you got to tell a woman how to be sometimes, put your hand down, but no, that whole thing with him and John, no, not so much.
I mean, Arthur did take Quincy back with him.
That's true.
And then Van Helsing just straight up says, like, oh my God, it's so funny. Arthur thinks that, like, they're married because they shared blood. But does that make me a bigamist because I shared her blood? Does that make me a cheater? We all shared blood? Like, oh, we're all promiscuous.
Yeah, and there's the promiscuous thing.
Mm-hmm. And Dr. Seward is just like, that's not funny, Van Helsing. And Van Helsing is like, yeah, it is. You gotta find humor in this awful shit. It's funny.
If like, right? You got. I mean, yeah. Especially when you're like a doctor dealing with this sort of stuff all the time, you gotta find
the funny
silver
somewhere.
lining.
Yeah.
Find the funnies and the sads.
Right. That's what Van Helsing was saying.
Mm-hmm.
King Laugh come whenever he want.
No, but I'm thinking like, I wonder if that's how people looked at like sharing blood at the time. It was like this, naughty thing to share blood. Like, I wonder how many people like died, like in the next coming decades before it was like widely known about like blood transfusions, or like, we need to save your brother's life.
Melanie.
You need to give him your blood.
Melanie quoted.
And he's just like, gross, it's my brother.
Melanie quoted that. Find the funnies and the sads. Brilliant statement. Still, I want to love you, but you have to not attack me.
The key to life: find the funnies and the sads.
Truer words never spoken.
All right, are we ready for next chapter?
Let's get into it, because I think...
Again, that Mina Harker.
Ew.
What?
That sounded weird that you said that like that.
Hey, you watch it. She's a married woman.
You watch it. You're the one being...
I mean, she is rich now, Sugar mama material.
My lord.
She's only like, what, 150 now? Or no, this came out in 97, so like 130? Not bad.
I'm gonna read this.
Could still work out.
I'm gonna read this chapter now. Also, no context about Jonathan seeing Dracula in the street and having like a PTSD episode.
I mean, well, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm just saying. Mina's gonna
Look,
read
this is 1897, all right? There's no PTSD. He needs to just man up.
I'm just saying the Bloofer lady and all that, but like Jonathan saw him.
Allegedly.
Oh god. All right. This is a long chapter, I think, so we're going to see where we're at, what time it is by the time we finish this chapter, whether or not we do another one. Methinks we probably will not be doing another, but
only one way to find out.
Yep,
Here we go.
Let's do it. You want to change the chapter starting chapter thingy? There we go. All right, here we go, everybody. Chapter 14. Mina Harker's Journal. 23rd September. Jonathan is better after a bad night. I'm so glad that he has plenty of work to do, for that keeps his mind off the terrible things. And oh, I am rejoiced that he is not weighed down with the that he is not now weighed down with the responsibility of his new position. I knew he would have to be true to himself, and now how proud I am to see my Jonathan rising to the height of his advancement and keeping pace in all ways with the duties that come upon him. He will be away all day till late, for he said he could not lunch at home. My household work is done, so I shall take his foreign journal and lock myself up in my room and read it. 24th of September. I hadn't the heart to write last night. That terrible record of Jonathan's upset me so. Poor dear. How he must have suffered, whether it be true or only imagination. I wonder if there is any truth in it at all. Did he get his brain fever and then write all those terrible things? Or had he had some cause for it all? I suppose I shall never know, for I dare not open the subject to him. And yet that man we saw yesterday, he seemed quite certain of him. Poor fellow. I supposed it was the funeral upset him and set his mind back on some train of thought. He believes it all himself. I remember how on our wedding day he said, unless some solemn duty come upon me to go back to the bitter hours, sleep or awake, mad or sane. There seems to be through it all some thread of continuity. The fearful Count was coming to London. If it should be, and he came to London, with its teeming millions, there may be a solemn duty, and if it come we must not shrink from it. I shall be prepared. I shall get my typewriter this very hour and begin transcribing. Then we shall be ready for other eyes if required. If it be wanted, then perhaps if I am ready, poor Jonathan may not be upset, for I can speak for him, and never let him be troubled or worried with it at all. If ever Jonathan quite gets over the nervousness, he may want to tell me of it all, and I can ask him questions and find out things, and see how I may comfort him. Letter. Van Helsing to Mrs. Harker. 24 September. Confidence. Dear Madam, I pray you to pardon my writing, in that I am so far friend as that I send to you sad news of Miss Lucy Westenra's death. By the kindness of Lord Godalming, I am empowering to read her letters and papers, for I am deeply concerned about certain matters vitally important. In them I find some letters from you, which show how great friends you were, and how you love her. Oh, Madam Mina, by that love, I implore you, help me. It is for others' good that I ask, to redress great wrong, and to lift much and terrible troubles, that may be more great than you can know. May it be that I see you. You can trust me. I am friend of Dr. John Seward, and of Lord Godalming, that was author of Miss Lucy. I must keep it private for the present from all. I should come to Exeter to see you at once, if you tell me I am privileged to come, and when, and where, and when. I implore your pardon, madam. I have read your letters to poor Lucy, and know how good you are, and how your husband suffer. So I pray you, if it may be, enlighten him not, lest it may harm. Again your pardon, and forgive me. Van Helsing. Telegram, Mrs. Harker to Van Helsing. 25th September. Come today by 10:15 train if you can catch it. See you any time you can call. Wilhelmina Harker. Mina Harker's Journal. 25th September. I cannot help feeling terribly excited as the time draws near for the visit of Dr. Van Helsing, for somehow I expect that it will show some light upon Jonathan's sad experience, and as he attended poor dear Lucy in her last illness, he can tell me all about her. That is the reason of his coming. It is concerning Lucy and her sleepwalking, and not about Jonathan. And I shall never know the real truth now. How silly I am. That awful journal gets hold of my imagination and tinges everything with something of its own colour. Of course it is about Lucy. The habit came back to the poor dear, and that awful night on the cliff must have made her ill. I'd almost forgotten in my own affairs how ill she was afterwards. She must have told him of her sleepwalking adventure on the cliff, and then I knew all about it. And now he wants me to tell him what she knows, so that he may understand. I hope I did right in not saying anything of it to Mrs. Westenra. I should never forgive myself if any acts of mine, were it even a negative one, brought harm on poor dear Lucy. I hope, too, Dr. Van Helsing will not blame me. I have had so much trouble and anxiety of late that I feel I cannot bear more just at present. I suppose a cry does us all good at times, clears the air as other rain does. Perhaps it was reading the journal yesterday that upset me, and then Jonathan went away this morning to stay away from me a whole day and night, the first time we've been parted since our marriage. I do hope the dear fellow will take care of himself, and that nothing will occur to upset him. It is 2:00, and the doctor will be here soon now. I shall say nothing of Jonathan's journal unless he asks me. I am so glad I have typewritten out my own journal, so that in case he asks about Lucy I can hand it to him. It will save much questioning. You just want more bloofer lady. Later. He has come and gone. What a strange meeting, and how it all makes my head whirl round. I feel like one in a dream. Can it all be possible, or even a part of it? If I had not read Jonathan's journal first, I should have never accepted even a possibility. Poor, poor dear Jonathan! How he must have suffered! Please the good God, all this may not upset him again. I shall try to save him from it, but it may be even a consolation and a help to him, terrible though it be, and awful in its consequences, to know for certain that his eyes and ears and brain did not deceive him, and that it is all true. It may be that it is the doubt which haunts him, that when the doubt is removed, no matter which, waking or dreaming, may prove the truth, he will be more satisfied and better able to bear the shock. Dr. Van Helsing must be as good a man as well as a clever one. Must be a good man as well as a clever one if he is Arthur's friend and Dr. Seward's, and if they brought him all the way from Holland to look after Lucy. I feel from seeing him that he is good and kind and of a noble nature. When he comes tomorrow, I shall ask him about Jonathan, and then, please God, all this sorrow and anxiety may lead to a good end. I used to think I would like to practice interviewing. Jonathan's friend on the Exeter News told him that memory was everything in such work, that you must be able to put down exactly almost every word spoken, even if you had to refine some of it afterwards. Here was a rare interview. I shall try to record it verbatim. It was 2:30 when the knock came. I took my courage à deux mains, and waited. In a few minutes, Mary opened the door and announced, "Dr. Van Helsing." I rose and bowed, and he came towards me. A man of medium weight, strongly built, with his shoulders set back over a broad, deep chest, and a neck well balanced on the trunk, as the head is on the neck. The poise of the head strikes one at once as indicative of thought and power. The head is noble, well-sized, broad, and large behind the ears. The face, clean-shaven, shows a hard, square chin, a large, resolute, noble mouth, a good-sized nose, rather straight, but with quick, sensitive nostrils that seem to broaden as the big, bushy brows come down and the mouth tightens. The forehead is broad and fine, rising at first almost straight and then sloping back above two bumps or ridges wide apart. Such a forehead that the reddish hair cannot possibly tumble over it, but falls naturally back into the sides. Big, dark blue eyes are set widely apart and are quick and tender or stern with the man's moods. He said to me, "Mrs. Harker, is it not?" I bowed assent. "That was Miss Mina Murray?" Again I assented. "It is Mina Murray that I came to see, that was friend of that poor dear child Lucy Westenra. Madam Mina, it is on account of the dead that I come." "Sir," I said, "you could have no better claim on me than that you were a friend and helper of Lucy Westenra." I held out my hand. He took it and said tenderly, "Oh, Madam Mina, I knew that the friend of that poor Lily girl must be good, but I had yet to learn—" He finished his speech with a courtly bow. I asked him what it was that he wanted to see me about, so he began at once. "I have read your letters to Miss Lucy. Forgive me, but I had to begin to inquire somewhere, and there was none to ask. I know that you were with her at Whitby. She sometimes kept a diary. You need not look surprised, Madam Mina. It was begun after you left, and was in imitation of you. And in that diary she traces by inference certain things to a sleepwalking, in which she puts down that you saved her. In great perplexity when I come to you, and ask you out of your so much kindness, to tell me all of it that you can remember." "I can tell you, Dr. Van Helsing. I think all about it." "Ah, then you have good memory for facts, for details? It is not always so with young ladies." "No, doctor, but I wrote it all down at the time. I can show it to you if you like." "Oh, Madam Mina, I would be grateful. You will do me much favor." I could not resist the temptation of mystifying him a bit. I suppose it is some of the taste of the original apple that remains still in our mouths, so I handed him the shorthand diary. He took it with a grateful bow and said, "May I read it?" "If you wish," I answered as demurely as I could. He opened it, and for an instant his face fell. Then he stood up and bowed. "Oh, you so clever woman," he said. "I knew long that Mr. Jonathan was a man of much thankfulness. But see, his wife have all the good things. And will you not so much honor me, and so help me, as to read it for me? Alas, I do not know the shorthand." By this time my little joke was over, and I was almost ashamed, so I took the typewritten copy from my work basket and handed it to him. "Forgive me," I said. "I could not help it, but I'd been thinking that if it was of dear Lucy that you wished to speak, and so that you might not have time to wait, not on my account, but because I know your time must be precious, I've written it out on the typewriter for you." He took it, and his eyes glistened. "You are so good," and he said, "And may I read it now? I may want to ask you things when I have read." "By all means," I said. "Read it over whilst I order lunch, and then you can ask me questions whilst we eat." He bowed and settled himself in a chair with his back to the light, and became absorbed in the papers, whilst I went to see after lunch, chiefly in order that he might not be disturbed. When I came back, I found him walking hurriedly up and down the room, his face all ablaze with excitement. He rushed up to me and took me by both hands. "Oh, Madam Mina," he said, "how can I say that I owe you? This paper is as sunshine. It opens the gate to me. I am dazed, I am dazzled with so much light, and yet clouds roll in behind the light every time. But that you cannot comprehend. Oh, but I am grateful to you, you so clever woman. Madam," he said this very solemnly, "if ever Abraham Van Helsing can do anything for you or yours, I trust you will let me know. It will be pleasure and delight if I may serve you as a friend, but all I have ever learned, all I can ever do, shall be for you and those you love. There are darknesses in life, and there are lights. You are one of the lights. You will have happy life and good life, and your husband will be blessed in you." "Oh, but doctor, you praise me too much, and you do not know me." "Not know you? I, who am old, and who have studied all my life men and women. I, who have made my specialty the brain, and all that belongs to him, and all that follow him. And I have read your diary that you have so goodly written for me, and which breathes out the truth in every line. I, who have read your so sweet letter to poor Lucy of your marriage and your trust not know you. Oh, Madam Mina, good women tell all their lives, and by day, and by hour, and by minute, such things that angels can read. And we men who wish to know have in us something of angels' eyes. Your husband is noble nature, and you are noble too, for you trust, and trust cannot be where there is mean nature. And your husband, tell me of him. Is he quite well? Is all that fever gone, and is he strong and hearty?" I saw here an opening to ask him about Jonathan, so I said, "He was almost recovered, but he's been greatly upset by Mr. Hawkins' death." He interrupted. "Ah, yes, I know. I have read your last 2 letters." I went on. "I suppose this upset him, for when we were in town on Thursday last, he had a sort of shock." "A shock, and after brain fever so soon? That was not good. What kind of a shock was it?" He thought he saw someone who recalled something terrible, something which led to his brain fever. And here the whole thing seemed to overwhelm me in a rush. The pity for Jonathan, the horror which he experienced, the whole fearful mystery of his diary, and the fear that has been brooding over me ever since, all came in a tumult. I suppose I was hysterical, for I threw myself on my knees and held my hands up to him and implored him to make my husband well again. He took my hands and raised me up and made me sit on the sofa and sat by me. He held my hand in his and said to me with, oh, such infinite sweetness, My life is a barren and lonely one, and so full of work that I have not much time for friendships. But since I have been summoned to here by my friend John Seward, I have known so many good people and seen such nobility that I feel now more than ever, and it has grown with my advancing years, the loneliness of my life. Believe me that I come here full of respect for you, and you have given me hope. Hope not in what I am seeking of, but that there are good women still left to make life happy. Good women whose lives and whose truths may make good lesson for the children that there are to be. I am glad that I may be of some use to you, for if your husband suffer, he suffer within the range of my study and experience. I promise you that I will gladly do all for him that I can, all to make his life strong and manly, and your life a happy one. Now you must eat. You are overwrought and perhaps over-anxious. Husband Jonathan would not like to see you so pale, and what he like, not where he love, is not to his good. Therefore, for his sake, you must eat and smile. You have told me all about Lucy, and so now we shall not speak of it, lest it distress. I shall stay in Exeter tonight, for I want to think much over what you have told me, and when I have thought I will ask you questions, if I may. And then, too, you will tell me of husband Jonathan's trouble so as you can, but not yet. You must eat now. Afterwards, you shall tell me all. After lunch, when we went back to the drawing room, he said to me, "And now, tell me about him." When it came to speaking to this great learned man, I began to fear that he would think me a weak fool, and Jonathan a madman. The journal is also strange, and I hesitated to go on. But he was so sweet and kind, and he had promised to help, and I trusted him. So I said, "Dr. Van Helsing, what I have to tell you is so queer that you must not laugh at me or my husband. I have been since yesterday in a sort of fever of doubt. You must be kind to me and not think me foolish that I have even half believed some very strange things." He reassured me by his manner as well as his words when he said, "Oh, my dear, if you only knew how strange is the matter regarding which I am here, it is you who would laugh. I have learned not to think little of anyone's belief, no matter how strange it be. I have tried to keep an open mind, and it is not the ordinary things of life that could close it, but the strange things, the extraordinary things, the things that make one doubt if they be mad or sane." Thank you 1,000 times. You've taken a weight off my mind. If you will let me, I shall give you a paper to read. It is long, but I've typewritten it out. It will tell you my trouble and Jonathan's. It is the copy of his journal when abroad, and all that happened. I dare not say anything of it. You will read it for yourself and judge. And then when I see you, perhaps you will be very kind and tell me what you think." "I promise," he said as I gave him the papers. "I shall in the morning, soon as I can, come to see you and your husband, if I may. Jonathan will be here at 11:30, and you must come to lunch with us and see him then. You could catch the quick 3:34 train, which will leave you at Paddington before 8. He was surprised at my knowledge of the trains offhand, but he does not know that I have made up all the trains to and from Exeter, so that I may help Jonathan in case he is in a hurry. So he took the papers with him and went away, and I sit here thinking I don't know what. Letter by hand, Van Helsing to Mrs. Harker, 25th of September, 6 o'clock. Dear Madam Mina, I have read your husband's so wonderful diary. You may sleep without doubt. Strange and terrible as it is true. I will pledge my life on it. It may be worse for others, but for him and you, there is no dread. He is a noble fellow, and let me tell you from experience of men, the one who would do as he did in going down that wall into that room, and going a second time, is not one to be injured in permanence by a shock. His brain and heart are all right. This I swear before I have even seen him, so be at rest. I shall have much to ask him of other things. I am blessed today I come to see you, for I have learned all at once so much that again I am dazzled more than ever, and I must think. Yours the most faithful, Abraham Van Helsing. Letter, Mrs. Harker to Van Helsing. 25th September, 6:30 p.m. My dear Dr. Van Helsing, 1,000 thanks for your kind letter, which has taken a great weight off my mind. And yet if it be true, what terrible things there are in the world, and what awful thing if that man, that monster, be really in London. I fear to think. I have this moment, whilst writing, had a wire from Jonathan, saying that he leaves by the 6:25 tonight from Launceston, and will be here at 10:18, so that I shall have no fear tonight. Will you therefore, instead of lunching with us, please come to breakfast at 8 o'clock, if this not be too early for you? You can get away, if you are in a hurry, by the 10:30 train, which will bring you to Paddington by 2:35. Do not answer thus, as I shall take it that, if I do not hear, you will come to breakfast. Believe me, your faithful and grateful friend, Mina Harker. Jonathan Harker's journal. 26 September. I never thought to write in this diary again, but the time is come. When I got home last night, Mina had supper ready, and when we had supped, she told me of Van Helsing's visit, and of her having given him the 2 diaries, copied out, and of how anxious she has been about me. She showed me in the doctor's letter that all I wrote down was true. It seems to have made a new man of me. It was the doubt as to the reality of the whole thing that knocked me over. I felt impotent and in the dark and distrustful, but now that I know, I'm not afraid, even of the Count. He has succeeded, after all, then, in his design in getting to London, and it was he I saw. He's got younger, and how? Van Helsing is the man to unmask him and hunt him out, if he is anything like what Mina says. We sat late and talked it all over. Mina is dressing, and I shall call at the hotel in a few minutes and bring him over. He was, I think, surprised to see me. When I came into the room where he was and introduced myself, he took me by the shoulder and turned my face round to the light, and said, after a sharp scrutiny, "But Madam Mina told me you were ill, that you had a shock." It was so funny to hear my wife called Madam Mina by this kindly, strong-faced old man. I smiled and said, "I was ill. I have had a shock. But you've cured me already." "And how?" "By your letter to Mina last night. I was in doubt, and then everything took a hue of unreality, and I did not know what to trust, even the evidence of my own senses. Not knowing what to trust, I did not know what to do, so I only had to keep on working in what had hitherto been the groove of my life. The groove ceased to avail me, and I mistrusted myself. Doctor, you don't know what it is to doubt everything, even yourself." "No, you don't. You couldn't with eyebrows like yours." He seemed pleased and laughed as he said, "So, you are a physiognomist. I learn more here with each hour. I am with so much pleasure coming to you to breakfast. And, oh, sir, you will pardon praise from an old man, but you are blessed in your wife." I would listen to him go on praising Mina for a day, so I simply nodded and stood silent. "She is one of God's women, fashioned by his own hand to show us men and other women that there is a heaven where we can enter, and that its light can be here on earth. So true, so sweet, so noble, so little an egoist, and that, let me tell you, sir, is much in this age, so skeptical and selfish. And you, sir, I've read all the letters to poor Miss Lucy, and some of them speak of you, so I know you, since some since some days from the knowing of others. But I have seen your true self since last night. You will give me your hand, will you not? And let us be friends for all our lives." We shook hands, and he was so earnest and so kind that it made me quite choky. "And now," he said, "may I ask you for some more help? I have a great task to do, and at the beginning it is to know. You can help me here. Can you tell me what went before your going to Transylvania? Later on I may ask more help and of a different kind, but at first this will do." "Look here, sir," I said. "What does this have to... Does what you have to do concern the Count?" "It does," he said solemnly. "Then I am with you heart and soul. As you go by the 10:30 train, you will not have time to read them, but I shall get the bundle of papers. You can take them with you and read them in the train." After breakfast, I saw him to the station. When we were parting, he said, "Perhaps you will come to town if I send to you, and take Madam Mina too." "We shall both come when you will," I said. I'd got him the morning papers and the London papers of the previous night, and while we were talking at the carriage window, waiting for the train to start, he was turning them over. His eyes suddenly seemed to catch something in one of them, the Westminster Gazette. I knew it by the colour, and he grew quite white. He said something intently, groaning to himself. Mein Gott, so soon, so soon." I do not think he remembered me at the moment. Just then the whistle blew and the train moved off. This recalled him to himself, and he leaned out the window and waved his hand, calling out, "Love to Madam Mina. I shall write so soon as ever I can." Dr. Seward's Diary. 26 September. Truly there is no such thing as finality. Not a week since I said finis, and yet here I am, starting fresh again, or rather going on with the same record. Until this afternoon I had no cause to think of what is done. Renfield had become, to all intents, as sane as he ever was. He was already well ahead with his fly business, and he had just started in the spider line also, so he had not been any trouble to me. I had a letter from Arthur, written on Sunday, and from it I gather he is bearing up wonderfully well. Quincy Morris is with him, and that is much of a help, for he himself is a bubbling well of good spirits. Quincy wrote me a line too, and from him I hear that Arthur is beginning to recover something of his old buoyancy, so as to them all my mind is at rest. As for myself, I was settling down to my work with the enthusiasm which I used to have for it, that I might fairly have said that the wound which poor Lucy left on me was becoming I can't speak anymore. I can't read words anymore. Cicatrized. Everything is, however, now reopened, and what is to be the end, God only knows. I have an idea that Van Helsing thinks he knows too, but he will only let out enough at a time to whet curiosity. He went to Exeter yesterday and stayed there all night. Today he came back and almost bounded into the room at about 5:30 and thrust last night's Westminster Gazette into my hand. "What do you think of that?" he asked, as he stood back and folded his arms. I looked over the paper, for I really did not know what he meant, but he took it from me and pointed out a paragraph about children being decoyed away at Hampstead. It did not convey much to me until I read a passage where it described small punctured wounds on their throats, and an idea struck me and I looked up. "Well," he said. "It is like poor Lucy's." "And what do you make of it?" "Simply that there is some cause in common. Whatever it was that injured her has injured them." I did not quite understand his answer. "That is true indirectly, but not directly." "What do you mean, Professor?" I asked. I was a little inclined to take his seriousness lightly, for, after all, 4 days of rest and freedom from burning, harrowing anxiety does help to restore one's spirits. But when I saw his face, it sobered me. Never, even in the midst of our despair about poor Lucy, had he looked more stern. "Tell me," I said. "I can hazard no opinion. I do not know what to think, and I have no data on which to found a conjecture." "Do you mean to tell me, friend John, that you have no suspicion as to what poor Lucy died of, not after all the hints given, not only by events, but by me?" "Of nervous prostration following on great loss or waste of blood." "And how was the blood lost or waste?" I shook my head. He stepped over and sat down beside me and went on. "You are a clever man, friend John. You reason well, and your wit is bold. But you are too prejudiced. You do not let your eyes see nor your ears hear, and that which is outside your daily life is not of account to you. Do you not think that there are things which you cannot understand, and yet which are? That some people see things that others cannot? And there are things old and new which must not be contemplated by man's eyes, because they know, or think they know, some things which other men have told them? It is the fault of our science that it wants to explain all, and if it explain not, then it says there is nothing to explain. And yet we see around us every day the growth of new beliefs, which think themselves new, and which are yet but the old, which pretend to be young, like the fine ladies at the opera. I suppose now you do not believe in corporeal transference. No, nor in materialization. No, nor in astral bodies. No, nor in the reading of thought. No, nor in hypnotism." "Yes," I said. "Charcot has proved that pretty well." He smiled as he went on. "Then you are satisfied as to it, yes? And of course then you understand how it act, and can follow the mind of the great Charcot. Alas that he is no more, into the very soul of the patient that he influence. No? Then, friend John, I am to take it that you simply accept fact, and are satisfied to let from premise to conclusion be a blank? No? Then tell me, for I am student of the brain, how you accept the hypnotism and reject the thought reading. Let me tell you, my friend, there are things done today in electrical science which would have been deemed unholy by the very men who discovered electricity, who would themselves not long before have been burned as wizards. There are always mysteries in life. Why was it that Methuselah lived 900 years and old Pa 169, and yet that poor Lucy, with 4 men's blood in her poor veins, could not even live 1 day? For had she lived 1 more day, we could have saved her. Do you know all the mystery of life and death? Do you know the altogether of comparative anatomy, and can say wherefore the qualities of brutes are in some men and not in others? Can you tell me why, when other spiders die small and soon, the one great spider lived for centuries in the tower of the old Spanish church, and grew, till, on descending, he could drink the oil of all the church lamps? Can you tell me why in the Pampas and elsewhere there are bats that come at night and open the veins of cattle and horses and suck dry their veins? How in some islands of the western seas there are bats which hang on trees all day, and those who have seen describe as giant nuts or pods, and that when the sailors sleep on the deck, because that it is hot, flit down on them, and then in the morning are found dead men, white as even Miss Lucy was." "Good God, Professor," I said, starting up. "Do you mean to tell me that Lucy was bitten by such a bat, and that such a thing is here in London in the 19th century?" He waved his hand for silence and went on. Oh my God. "Can you tell me why the tortoise lives more long than generations of men? Why the elephant goes on till he have seen dynasties? And why the parrot never die only of bite of cat or dog or other complaint? Can you tell me why men believe in all ages and places that there are some who live on always if they permit, that there are men and women who cannot die? We all know, because science has vouched for the fact, that there have been toads shut up in rocks for thousands of years, shut in one so small hole that only hold him since the youth of the world. Can you tell me how the Indian fakir can make himself to die and have been buried, and his grave sealed and corn sowed on it, and the corn reaped and be cut and sown and reaped and cut again, and that the men come and take away the unbroken seal, and that there lie the Indian fakir not dead, but that rise up and walk amongst them as before? Here I interrupted him. I was getting bewildered. He so crowded on my mind his list of nature's eccentricities and possible impossibilities that my imagination was getting fired. I had a dim idea that he was teaching me some lesson, as long ago he used to do in his study at Amsterdam, but he had used then to tell me the thing, so that I could have the object of thought in mind all the time. But now I was out this help, yet I wanted to follow him. So I said, Professor, let me be your pet student again. Tell me the thesis, so that I may apply your knowledge as you go on. At present, I'm going in my mind from point to point as a madman, and not a sane one follows an idea. I feel like a novice lumbering through a bog in a mist, jumping from one tussock to another in a mere blind effort to move on without knowing where I'm going. This is a good image, he said. Well, I shall tell you. My thesis is this. I want you to believe. To believe what? To believe in things that you cannot. Let me illustrate. I once heard of an American who so defined faith, that faculty which enables us to believe things which we know to be untrue. For one, I follow that man. He meant that we shall have an open mind and not let a little bit of truth check the rush of a big truth, like a small rock does a railway truck. We get a small truth first. Good. We keep him and we value him. But all the same, we must not let him think himself all the truth in the universe. Then you want me to not let some previous conviction injure the receptivity of my mind with regard to some strange matter. Do I read your lesson aright? Ah, you are my favorite pupil still. It is worth to teach you. Now that you are willing to understand, you have taken the first step to understand. You think then that those small holes in the children's throat were made by the same that made the hole in Miss Lucy? I suppose so. He stood up and said solemnly, Then you are wrong. Oh, would it were so. But alas, no. It is worse. Far, far worse. In God's name, Professor Van Helsing, what do you mean? I cried. He threw himself with a despairing gesture into a chair and placed his elbows on the table, covering his face with his hands as he spoke. They were made by Miss Lucy.
Well, that's a bummer. I'm hoping Van Helsing is wrong.
You want the blue fur lady to be Dracula?
Now that I went through...
Dan just said end lurk.
Perfect timing too for that.
Plot twist. Multiple vampires.
So does this mean that now Lucy has yet another husband?
Yep. Sure.
Lucy, come on.
One man is not enough.
Now she's Dracula's wife. Well, probably. Most likely. But no, I kind of remembered that it was Lucy, but after that whole discussion about the blue fur lady, like, that would have just been great.
You wanted it to be Dracula in a
be
dress.
Dracula.
Is it just me, or does Van Helsing really like Mina Harker?
Yeah, he does.
I think he may have a little crush on her. A little bit. He really likes her.
Yeah, maybe. She's also like one of the smartest female characters we met so far.
I think she's like the smartest character other than him.
Well, yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Jon Stewart's pretty smart.
I don't know. She was more open to the vampire thing than he was.
Yeah, but she read the journal.
That's true. She did read the journal.
So she had all that going on.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, Jon Stewart, I guess, is pretty smart. I think she's smarter than him in a way. I don't like the whole, like, oh, the taste of the original apple in my mouth. Like, oh my God. Just stop it with that. Ew.
No, not a fan of that sentence.
It's very dated. Let's put it that way.
So much in this, just so dated. But I don't know. I love Van Helsing. I think it's so weird when they describe him though, because like it's not how I think of him.
Did not think of him as a ginger.
No, and like very broad shoulder and everything. Like I think of him more as kind of like an academic, like a nerdy guy. Less of
strong man.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's very much like a strong man with a square jaw and
yeah,
all that. Yeah. Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, pretty much.
Old Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
Because he's supposed to be old. Yeah. It's definitely interesting how they just the ginger thing threw me off. I didn't remember that he.
What's wrong with him being a ginger?
Well, they describe him as having like dark skin, but then he's also a ginger.
Oh yeah, they do, don't they?
So that just was like weird.
Yeah, those two things. Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
Jonathan finally healing.
That's why they gave her all that extra blood. Yeah.
Finally feeling better.
A little bit.
I think he's just like
I think he's a little vindicated now that
probably got to feel really great. Like, holy shit, I wasn't losing my mind. This is real. Thank God.
Thank God vampires are real. Oh my God, vampires are real.
Yeah.
Like it's a lose-lose. Either you're crazy or there's vampires loose.
That's true. Not good. Either way, I guess.
Like, oh no, I'm crazy, I'm doomed. Oh no, we're all doomed, but I'm not crazy.
Mina Harker, what would they all do without her, though?
What do you mean?
She's got the train schedule down. She writes the stuff. She takes the notes. She's got all the information. She lays it all out. She's like Hermione. Like, look, here it is. Nice and typed out. I love that she was just like, oh, here you go. Oh, what? You can't read that? My bad. That was a little flex on her part. Like, I don't know. Like, the whole thing about the apple and, like, being a good wife and a good husband, like, for my husband and blah, blah, blah. Like, that's all there. But she's also very smart and, like, independent in her own way.
Well, yeah.
And I like her.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she learned shorthand to talk with Jonathan in secret.
Yep. But, like, also for her own, like, stimulation and curiosity and...
Well, yeah.
I mean, she says, oh, I can help my husband do this, and I can help my husband do that. But, like, you also get the sense in the novel that, like, she does it because she likes it, too, and she's interested in it, and, like, she has an intellectual curiosity that she wants to satisfy.
The things that she, like, does to help her husband aren't like, I'm going to make him dinner. I'm going to do his laundry. It's like, I'm going to learn shorthand. I'm going to help him do this with his job and stuff. So, yeah, I think for the time, she was, like, a very progressive character, probably.
Also, Van Helsing being like, oh, do you remember everything? Women aren't very good with memorizing things.
I know. I feel like these last few chapters have been so much of that. I'm just like, oh, my God.
There's been a lot of it.
Yeah.
And then she's like, "Oh no, it's a no. I wrote it all down. See."
I'm not like most girls.
Like, oh Jesus. Yeah, there's been a lot of it. Like, and Van Helsing at the end of this chapter is just like on the soapbox about is like very like Mulder and Scully. Like, I want you to believe. Do you believe? Do you believe?
Also, the thing is, like, we're going through all this, and Van Helsing is like speaking in riddles. Like, spit it out, man.
Yeah, he's not helping anyone try to understand what it is.
No.
He's like,
I think he gets off at knowing more than everyone else. He's
Yeah.
one of those intellectuals.
and he's like, here's a crumb.
yeah.
What, you don't got it yet? Here, put it together. I'll give you another crumb.
I think that's why like his and Mina's reaction or interactions were great, because that's what he does to other characters, but Mina kind of did that back to him.
Yeah, and he was like, oh, clever girl. Yeah, I mean, Jon Stewart didn't like quite get it, but at the same time, like the volume of word salad that he just threw at him, like
I know.
over all that. I mean, it was all like
Like the bats that suck the blood from the cows. The bats hanging from the trees
Yeah.
that look like cocoons.
but like before all that is like the tortoise that lives 1,000 years and this and that and the other thing. And like, I get that he's trying to like say there is an undead thing that has been alive forever, sucking the blood out of everyone, taking the form of a bat. However, I think there was an easier way to posit that
Yeah, I think so.
to Jon Stewart, who is
Jon Stewart isn't a zoologist, man. Come on, at least put it in words he can understand.
right. He's a psychiatrist. Like,
Yeah.
he runs an insane asylum. Like my dude.
Oh, that's something I never mentioned.
Oh, and Renfield, no shit's going down with Renfield. Renfield's behaving himself, apparently.
I know. I'm going to say it's the next chapter now. Something's gonna happen.
I mean,
with
they did
Renfield.
mention him.
Yeah.
He's on the spiders now. We're back on the spiders.
Yeah, I kind of forgot everything about this chapter. Like I forgot like all this interaction happened. But oh, what was I gonna say now? Yeah, that's also something I kind of noticed in past chapters that dates it. There's one point where they talked about it was Renfield or another resident trying to like escape or something. And it was like one of the guards hit him with the whip and was able to restrain him. It's just like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, this was normal then.
Yeah. They like routinely just beat them up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Try to escape. Well, I guess we're fighting.
We're fighting, and then we're putting on the straitjacket, and we're sitting in the room till I say we're not.
Yeah.
Ooh.
This'll fix you.
Yeah.
What could possibly go wrong? Where are you going?
Sorry about that. Okay. Just taking a peek and see. I don't know if we can do it tonight.
That one seems like... Damn, that goes on forever.
That might be a tomorrow chapter.
Like the length of both of these chapters in one.
Yeah, that might have to be a tomorrow chapter. 'Cause Lord, that's a... But yeah,
So what are they gonna do about Lucy?
what are they gonna do about Lucy? What do you think?
I think they need to start sharpening some stakes.
I mean, in the previous chapter, Van Helsing did want to chop her head off. Remember? And then he was like, "Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe we're being too hasty. Maybe we need to slow our roll a little bit."
But we were not being too hasty.
No, we were not. In fact, we were not hasty enough because now we are doing a grayback.
Yeah, what's with her going after kids only?
That's what like the wives do. Like a perversion of motherly love.
Yeah, something like that. Or maybe it's just women are so weak they can't actually take down like a grown person.
A manly man like Quincy
Yeah.
Morris, because if they keep making them like that in America, she's gonna be a force to be reckoned with. Boy, that dated it, didn't it?
Oh yeah.
They keep making them like that in America. Like, oh my god. This is what a 19th century Irishman's opinion was of Americans. Right there.
Yeah, there you go.
You know what? It reminds me of the Texan character in his Dark Materials. Because he's like a token like he's.
You say that like I've read that series.
I know. I'm sorry. But that's who I think of. I think of the.
I feel like that's still how people think of Americans for the most part.
Yeah, it's a little cowboys and stuff. It's a thing. Yeah. Definitely still a thing. I mean, children are considered like easy prey.
You can post on the server for a long. I still use Discord. It's not enough.
He uses Discord when he plays video games with his friends. That's when he uses Discord.
Just like maybe once every couple weeks.
Nah, it's more than that. You be talking to us more often.
Oh.
I feel like sometimes you guys talk like multiple nights in a row.
Sometimes it was very rare.
Either way, he uses it for a lot of voice chatting with friends, usually.
But yeah, for the most part, I'm not on Discord that much.
Do you want him to be in the Discord more?
I mean, I should be. Like, I just...
You have more time than me.
I always have other stuff.
Yeah, you're always working on other stuff. But you definitely have more downtime, I guess, during the day than I do.
I mean, kind of, maybe. Some days.
I don't know. I feel like I'm always at work doing animal things.
Well, yeah, I think you're physically more busy than me.
Anyway. What do y'all think is going to happen next? The bloofer lady going to take more bibbies?
Or the men gonna have to take care of the bloofer lady.
The manly men.
The men are gonna have to be stern with the bloofer lady. That's how you handle these women who get raucous.
Dan thinks more people are going to bleed.
Oh yeah.
That's funny. Dan posts more in our own server than we post in our server. 100%. I mean, I put stuff in there every once in a while, but I'm not as active in there as I'd like to be. But, like, Dan, like, he's always dropping things in there.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Don't mean it.
Because yeah, I'm terrible with posting.
But we are now officially more than halfway through this book.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I was kind of worried that we were going to finish it by Halloween, but we are.
Yeah, we're making good time. Halloween time, Halloween stream. Hey, Not a bad thing, sir. Yeah, I don't know. I just kind of got the vibes of, well, all of the conversations about women, and to think that this was progressive for the time.
Right? Well, like Mina.
Yeah. Well, Lucy being
Oh, and that, yeah.
promiscuous woman.
I know. She fancied more than one guy.
I know.
How dare she?
You know what's funny is since Quincy moved into Arthur's house, Arthur seems to have like rallied and he's doing better. Not so sad anymore. Seems like he's all better because Quincy is just so bubbly and fun.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, we'll say that. What do you think each character like represents? Because I mean, we know Dracula just represents like pure evil.
And
Lucy is like corrupted good. Right? Corrupted innocence, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you have any
Oh, I thought
like-
you were gonna give your ideas first.
Oh, no. That was kind of like in the moment, like brainstorming.
That was what
kind
you
of thing.
had. That was
So I
it.
wanted to see if you had any. I was
Oh.
gonna feed off of it. But I think Mina is like kind of represents. Well, I don't know. It's probably her or Van Helsing that like represents reason. I think.
reason.
Yeah.
Well, if by the same token, I would argue that John Stewart represents like hard, immovable logic, like closed-minded logic,
Yeah.
like Hermione-like logic, not being open. Like Seward is Hermione and Van Helsing is Luna.
Yeah.
Kind of a vibe. Jonathan is like your everyman character.
Mm-hmm.
Just the guy.
Just the poor guy who happened to walk into the wrong castle one day.
Yep. I mean, Arthur represents like power, status, wealth, all that. Quincy Morris represents America.
He just represents freedom.
Freedom. That's right. I mean, I'm sure there are other things. I would have to like think about it. It's been a while since I've read this book, and like as we're reading this, like every time we live stream and we read, like this is a cold read. Like I haven't read the chapter previously. I'm just like reading it and like thinking in my brain and reading it at the same time. So like that stuff I think I have to think about a little more before I like definitively answer the question. Because like even Dracula, he's like power, sex, evil, seduction, all that.
I feel like Renfield is desire.
Yeah, I could. Yeah,
Desire, maybe
Wanting.
greed. Yeah. Lust.
lust, wanting. Yeah, big time. Big time.
Maybe more like, yeah, like power hungry, you know? He would give up his soul to the devil for power.
For power, for the thing. Whatever it is that he wants. Yeah.
Power over life.
The blood is the life.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god.
And his whole experiments with like the flies and spiders, like he's, playing God. I will give life to these so that they can give life to the spiders, then life
To
from
the
the spiders
birds
to the
and-
birds, and
And
then if could have gone, the birds to the cats. I don't know where you go from there. Cat to the bear, and
whatever comes next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
bear to the tiger, and then tiger to him. Except I don't think it would work out the way he wanted in that
No, I
case.
was gonna say tiger wins that one.
Yeah. I mean, bear wins that one at that point.
Yeah.
Heck, cat might win.
Oh my god, the tigers were so stinky.
Sorry to hear that.
They were very smelly. I don't know why.
You should give them a bath.
They have a pool.
Get in there and scrub them.
Yeah, okay. They would probably like it. I like having hands. I don't know. I was just like, wow, you guys are smelly. That's very off topic. I'm very sorry. But like I just was like, whew. What have you been doing? Smell.
They've been playing hard.
I think so, because like not all the animals I walk in there and I'm like, oh, you stink. You know, there's a few where I'm like, ooh. It's never usually the tigers. Usually the tigers, I'm like, oh, yeah, hello. And then today I was like, ooh, guys, wow. Mm-hmm. Rolled in something. I don't know.
I just had a random thought. Like, remember how we were saying the coffin was so comfy and everything?
Oh, yeah, Nandor, yeah.
Yeah. I just thought, like, man, it must be awful when you Dutch oven yourself in those.
Oh my god.
Like, do you think vampires get the blood farts?
Something to explore in my stories, I guess. The blood farts. They must be very metallic in their. The blood burps.
Oh, blood burps.
Yeah.
That would be gross.
Yeah, right?
I guess, yeah, there you go. Things to explore.
Things to explore. There it is.
I don't know.
Digestive issues.
I
Vampire
just thought
IBS.
technically a dead body laying in a coffin for so long, like those coffins gotta stink.
Maybe that's why Dracula sleeps with all the dirt in there.
Why?
To absorb the gases.
Maybe. I mean, actual reasoning is that vampires need to sleep on, their like home country. Yeah, home soil.
I was trying to make a joke. Gee. Dan is like, it's not dirt.
Not ew.
Gross. Now we've really just gross.
It's a dried blood.
Next time we're going to pick up with chapter 15. And guess who we're going to see again?
Mina Harker.
No.
Lucy.
No.
Renfield.
Dr. Seward. Again.
I feel like it's a bad thing. I don't mind him.
I'm like, he's the main character, even though he's like not the main character. But I swear to God, he's the main character.
Well, I mean, Lucy isn't doing a lot of writing now that she's busy
Being
eating children.
Bloofer lady.
Yeah.
The whole thing is Dr. Seward's diary. I think it's the entire chapter. Pretty much most of it. I had to pick, like, I read him. I feel like I read him, and he, like, sounds like Jon Snow.
It would be interesting if someone wrote, like, a Dracula's diary, like his perspective of all this.
Oh, my God.
Like, today, Jonathan Harker discovered my sleeping coffin. I scared the crap out of him.
Today,
I waited until the perfect moment, and then I snapped my eyes open and smiled. He nearly pooped himself. Gotta think of ways to mess with him again tomorrow.
He shook my hand, and he saw my hairy palms. Very rude to stare. Self-conscious about that.
I forgot to shave again.
Hard to do when you don't have any mirrors in your house.
But yeah, I don't know. I was just thinking it'd be great to hear like how all this goes down.
From Dracula's perspective.
Saw Jonathan Harker in town. That idiot didn't even recognize me.
Very rude. Didn't even come and say hello.
I let him live, you know. It's the least he could do.
Say hi.
All right.
On that note.
That it?
I think so.
Anything?
I think
All
for
right.
tonight. I think that's a good place to stop. Ooh. I don't know what that is.
I'm pretty sure it's Linus Tech Tips live stream show.
Who is that?
It's like a big tech YouTuber. I don't really know how to. I don't really know how to
that's
describe
fine.
him outside of that.
You're just looking at me like he's this big tech YouTuber. Like I'm supposed to know who that is. What about this says I know tech anything?
Fair enough. Touche. And you have me, so you like never have to learn.
That's right. What do I gotta learn it for? You're right there.
Fair enough.
Enjoy the rest of your nerdy computer show.
All right. Have a good night, everyone.
Have a good night, everybody.
We'll catch you tomorrow.
See y'all tomorrow. We will read more Dracula.